Hello. Reality is falling apart. That's really what's happening today. Not today, I mean in general, in this time period. I look at my news feed on Facebook, and it's constantly filled with people who are, they're meat golem skin jobs, and they're revealing in enormous ways. Most common ways are the SJW types, the most extreme ones, and the likes of the ones who like scream and shout and roar and have tantrums and fall apart and make no coherent sense. Along with them, we also have these people who think they're multiple genders. They're not multiple genders. They're psychiatric. Well, they're falling apart because what's inside there is kind of like a soulless entity, and it's a skin job, meat golem, whatever. And it's the facade that it's held it together is not staying integrated as basically humanity goes through a shift in consciousness. Now, I'm not talking about a person who maybe be a man and want to become a woman because they feel they're a woman, or a woman who wants to become a man. That's okay. I'm talking about somebody, like I'm talking about the kind of things I'm seeing now, like a woman who becomes a man, but she retains her human or female human sexual reproduction organs along with a new penis, so she can still have a period and a menstrual cycle. This is like like a Bosch painting, the Garden of Earthly Delights. We're seeing the same kind of thing happening, a sense of distortion. When reality is starting to shift, people start to break down, they start to fall apart, and it happens to the ones who are like skin jobs. Now, I use skin jobs all the time for Renfielding. Renfielding is when you have like the so-called truth movement is filled with these psychotics, and they Renfield. Like what they do is when something is about to happen in reality, I'll watch the Facebook newsfeed and they'll start posting photographs and images of animal murders, human tortures, executions, and they don't even know why they're even posting them. And it's the same thing with these people. Like you see these SJWs who do all weird things to their hair and body. Now, when I was growing up, if you were, say, a goth or a punk, and you had a mohawk or anything like that, you were part of a youth culture. You were part, even the New Romantics. It was nearly always associated with a musical scene, but you didn't do it for attention. You did it because of a kind of a tribalism, a kind of a healthy tribalism, and it was based around cultural things. These people don't even know why they dress the way they do, why they dye their hair like, silly colours, why they have these bizarre notions about human sexuality, reproduction types, chromosomes and so on, why they seem to want to defy reality, why they're incredibly fascistic and want to shut down, totalitarian more like, and shut down free speech while claiming that their own free speech is being damaged. They don't understand anything. What's happening is the soulless entity inside them, and they don't have souls. What they are is just basically. I was talking to a scientist recently, a geologist, and they said, Thomas, something I want to say that may sound kind of weird, but I do believe it the older I get, is that a lot of the people in this world are just filler. Like they're not actual. They're just there to make up the numbers. Now, the ones on the extreme end of that have almost no kind of soul whatsoever, and they fall apart. There's no internal psyche of any great integration or depth. And when society goes through a flux, you saw at the end of the Roman Empire, you saw it at the end of the Weimar Empire, you even saw it in the final days of the Nazis, and I'm sure if we knew more about it, we'd find out that it happened in the final days of the Soviet Union, where the most distorted and freaked out ones, and the ones that are empty inside, become completely disintegrated. They start like think of Caligula. They start like how he became increasingly psychotic towards the end of his reign. Before he was executed, he actually started believing he was a god. and he ate the fetus out of his wife and everything, the wife's womb. Now these people are at that level, but they're not. They don't have the excuse of being like an inbred aristocrat. This is how they're falling apart, because the entity inside them that helped them make up the numbers in this life, it cannot function as the consciousness shift is happening. We're moving into a new stage of consciousness. I used to wonder now this could take 40, 50 years, it won't happen this week. But since 2008, it's been obvious, anyone paying attention, that things have been kind of falling apart in society. Now, there's good things like that, like there's always good things. But in the past, when these things happened, when these destructions happened, they were often led to artistic greatness, artistic revivals. Like for instance, when the Middle Ages came crashing into bits and led to the Renaissance, the late Middle Ages, you still had a great growth in artwork and the development of art and artistic scenes and science. We don't have that now. We just have pure distortion. We just have, what's the word I would use for it, pure, unmitigated falling asunder. Now, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing people who are... They're not, I mean, I know this sounds incredibly cynical and hateful. I don't hate these people or anything. I feel sorry for them, because that's why they're falling apart. That's why they believe there are all these genders. This is why they believe they're non-binary. This is why they have this. This is why they take their little small children now and tell them that my child is, such and such gender, or no gender, or gender curious, or this kind of thing. Now, the great yardstick for that would be someone like Russell Brand. I don't know how any woman could look at Russell Brand and think he's attractive. Russell Brand looks like something from one of these Bosch paintings. He's not quite man, he's not quite woman, and he was almost like the clarion call, the opening round in this distortion and this collapse of society, being expressed in the form of distorted and strange humans of mixed sexuality, or strange, I'm not talking about bisexuals, I'm talking about they don't even know what they are. He doesn't know what he is. He was sort of like the trigger for all them. He was trying to make out he was a socialist while living in mansions. Didn't even know what socialism was. Would post pictures on his Twitter page of Karl Marx and Engels books to try and make out he was some kind of Marxist intellectuals, while he was like traveling around on a private jet. At the same time too, he gets rid of Katy Perry because he feels like he doesn't need her anymore. He starts banging one of the Goldsmith Rothschild crowd, while talking about everyone he knows is a banker or a billionaire, while talking about being egalitarian. And they were seeing that at the greater level now. He was the archetype that spawned all that. And we're now seeing that at the greater level in this bizarre generation fap, or whatever you want to call these creatures. And he got that ball rolling. He kind of was the trigger for them. And now in ancient times, those types would probably have been eaten alive by animals in the woods. They would probably have been killed by indigenous societies, had their throats cut and thrown into a bog so they couldn't reincarnate. We don't do those kinds of things anymore, but they still have an inherent need for self-destruction. So what they're doing is they're literally ripping themselves to pieces by behaving the way they do, dressing the way they do, dyeing their hair, having wild tantrums, having these totalitarian aspects of life that only their opinion matters and no one else does. They're not just snowflakes, they're literally broken human beings at the deepest psychic level, ripping themselves apart, and they're basically dead. They're already dead, but why they still exist and why we deal with them is the mainstream media indulges them. Like the mainstream media is kind of acting like a necromancer, and they've been necromanced into a kind of a living debt. And you see it with so many of the hipsters as well. They're in total denial of reality. Now, a lot of people think the world is going to end up like them, so they're actually like the beginning of a new generation. They're not. They're actually the ghosts of the failures of Western society. I know a lot of people say things like, we must save the West. I want the West to die. I want Western civilization to die. And I'll tell you why. As it stands now, it's an absolute fucking sewer. It deserves to die. And if it dies, it won't function anymore except for people that have inherent skills, ability to survive in cold and northern European weathers and stuff like that. And that will be the indigenous Europeans. And the people who came to Europe from the Middle East just won't be able to survive because we won't be here to fix their sewer systems or anything. We'll be too busy surviving out in the woods. There will be a mass cull. It will happen at some point. And I wouldn't bet, if you're intelligent, if you have an intelligent family, if your son is interested in fishing and sports and stuff like that, you have a much better chance than if your son is wearing dresses and thinks he's a mixed gender. Now that's what's going on. That's what the Russell Brand on a psychic level was about. He knows at a psychic level that something is coming like that, where the sort of like people who really shouldn't, who couldn't normally survive without being necromanced by the system, such as the likes of the Justin Trudeau and all these kind of politicians who claim to be progressive, and they're really just keeping these scores of broken meat golems alive. But that won't last forever. It's all falling apart. It's crashing to the ground. We're living in a very magical time. When I say magical, I'm not talking about like magical Disney or Harry Potter. I'm talking about in real time. We're watching reality collapse in front of our eyes. And that's just it. And get ready for it, because it's going to happen. And it's not doom. I'm not depressed about it. Neither should you be. When you see these people, I feel sorry for these people that we see them like they cut themselves up. They don't know what gender they are. They just distort and destroy themselves. I feel bad for them. I really do. On top of that, they have lots of people smoking high doses of heavy skunk weed. They're all becoming psychotic. There's more mental illness than ever before. The great cull will be self-induced. It won't be stormtroopers coming down the street. They'll give you all the weed you want, all the booze you want, all the sex changes you want, all the genders you want, all the psychotropic drugs you want, and you will fuck yourself into oblivion. They won't have to do anything. And the ones who will do it, and the ones who won't. And fucking Godspeed to the end of this Western civilization, because you know something? The only thing that will save the West going forward is what we have now goes down the shitter. And watch these meat golems, and watch these distorted individuals, because they're the barometer of the psychic weather that's affecting us. And I got news for you. It's a wind of change badly needed.